This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 3 hours and holding. We're in the final hours of the STS-32 launch countdown at this time. Everything is proceeding smoothly here in the firing room at the Launch Control Center. We've got a full 10-day mission plan for this flight. Primary objective is to deploy the CENTCOM satellite, retrieve the long-duration exposure facility, and to demonstrate the capability of modifications for an extended mission duration. And we've got the STS-32 flight crew again this morning for breakfast. Mission Specialist Marcia Ivins making her first trip into space today. Mission Specialist Bonnie Dunbar making her second trip into space. And Commander Dan Brandenstein. This will be his third flight, his second one to command. There's pilot James Weatherby and Mission Specialist David Lowe. We've now joined the STS-32 flight crew in the operations and checkout building. We're getting into their flight suits once again today. Commander Dan Brandenstein. All flight crew members being assisted with the gear that they have to wear on the launch today. It's Mission Specialist Bonnie Dunbar. It's Mission Specialist Marcia Ivins, getting her headgear on, and Mission Specialist David Lowe. And we've got the flight crew, Commander Dan Brandenstein, Mission Specialist Bonnie Dunbar, Pilot James Weatherby, leading the crew out of the side door there. We've got the other two mission specialists, Marcia Ivins and David Lowe, being greeted by Kennedy Space Center employees, and we're wishing them well for today's flight. And the crew once again making a trip to pad 39A. Today looking at favorable weather conditions for a launch attempt. Flight crew now at the White Room at Launch Pad 39A. Commander Dan Brandenstein is being assisted now with the rest of his gear before boarding the orbiter Columbia.
OTC CDR, sound check.
Morning, CDR. This is OTC.
Morning. Read you loud and clear.
Read you the same, and weather looks good for today thus far, I think.
All right.
NTD CMQC. Go ahead. Last constraint has been cleared.
Coming up on retraction of the orbiter access arm. This arm can be extended in just a few seconds if necessary.
PLT, OTC, perform APU pre-start.
As APU pre-starts and work.
Main engines now being gimbaled will be put in the ready-to-start position. Now retracting the gaseous oxygen vent hood away from the vehicle, back to the launch position.
And caution warning memory is cleared.
Copy, and flight crew, close and lock your visors and initiate O2 flow and have a good flight.
T-minus 31 seconds.
Let's go for auto sequence start.
We have a go for auto sequence start. Columbia's 4 redundant computers have primary control of critical vehicle functions for the remainder of the count. T-minus 20. T-minus 15. T-minus 10. 9. We have a go for main engine start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Booster ignition and liftoff of Columbia. A new decade of spaceflight begins.
Descending from the tower, hand over to Houston complete. Roll program initiated.
Roger, roll, Columbia.
Good roll confirmed as Columbia heads out on the proper launch azimuth for the race to catch LDEF. Now throttling down through 102% for the passage through maximum dynamic pressure. They'll take the engines down to 65%. 3 good APUs, 3 good fuel cells. Now throttling back up, 3 at 104.
Columbia, go with throttle up. Roger, Houston, go with throttle up.
Now 12 nautical miles downrange, velocity 3,200 feet per second. 3 good main engines, 3 good fuel cells, 3 good APUs. 15 nautical miles downrange now. Standing by for SRB staging. Now at 4,400 feet per second, 40 miles downrange, performance nominal.
Columbia, performance nominal. Roger, Houston, nominal performance. Okay, Jim, what you're looking at right now is the SYNCOM satellite. That's actually an acronym that stands for Synchronous Communications. It's built by the Hughes Communications Services Incorporated for the United States Navy. It's actually leased to the United States Navy for communications in the UHF frequency with its worldwide fleet. You can see it coming out of the payload bay right now, rotating at about 1.7 RPM and translating away at about 1.5 feet per second. It was held in the bay by a cradle. In the cradle we had 4 pins that we released one by one, and then finally at deploy time we had a pyrotechnic device that pushed it away. With the pyro device fired and spring pushed it away at about 1.7 RPM. In this picture here, this is about 80 seconds into the deploy, and the Omni antenna you can see deploying at this time. As you can see, this spacecraft is actually deployed out of the payload bay when the payload bay is facing the Earth.
morning, Columbia.
Good morning, Earth.
We thought you'd appreciate a little Bing Crosby to wake up to this morning.
It was wonderful.
Okay, we're just starting to get it.
Okay, and you've got the HUMSEP on the left and the water coming out on the right.
Roger that.
What you can see, well, you probably can't see it very well on TV, but right along the leading edge here, starting about where the light is now, the water comes up about a quarter of the way, just a little bit below where the floor line now is, and it goes back over here, and here it comes up to about the floor line. It's just a sheet of water, as you indicated. It was like on 27 on the front. Around the end here, we can't see anything, but on the back side, there's a little ridge along the bottom, and you can just see that there's just some water there. Looking down into the bilges, every once in a while you can see a little glob of water down there, and until we get this out, it's going to be kind of hard to tell, because we can't get that good a view down past this canister right now.
Columbia, Houston, we can't tell very well from the video what you're seeing. Can you give us a little bit of a description what you got in the bilge?
Okay, Frank. I'll kind of start on the water tank up here. There are a few globules, and on the side of the wet trash stowage, there's one big glob. And then down along the side of the wet stowage, there's some more. Then on the deck and along these cables, there's some big globs. And then also on the HUMSEP, there's some big globs. A grand total probably of a quart, if you probably summed it all up, and that's a pretty rough guess probably.
Dave Lowe, David Lowe, daylight come and it's time to wake up. Dave Lowe, David Lowe, daylight come and it's time to get up. Come all you astronauts sleeping in the cabin. Daylight come and it's time to wake up. Time to get out of your bed and your pajamas. Daylight come and it's time to get up.
Good morning, Columbia. We like the wake-up music so much today, we thought we'd play it for you twice.
Good morning, Houston, man. We be up.
Columbia, Houston, we have a tally-ho on LDEF, and it looks even better than the SMS visuals.
Roger.
I'm sorry, pushing.
One of the things I did notice, this was my first operation, and end effector course, as you notice the dynamics when I started to back away there, you get a lot of motion. And I had to stay in course so I could rotate around. Otherwise, it would have taken too long. I think I would have had to back away too far. But this got me around, and then as soon as I was aligned, I went into barriers. And then I had to do a little bit of track and capture. Wasn't too bad. Actually, Dan makes my job very easy.
And at this point, we were extremely happy because we had a good grapple and we were ready to continue on. At this point, it doesn't show up anywhere in the video or anything, but Wexby took over and manually flew to the protect attitude and maintained that attitude throughout the photo survey. And Marcia took more photos than I'm clear to tell you, but she'll tell you in her film report tonight. And I think that'll all go well towards documenting and helping with the data that they hope to get off LDEF.
Columbia, Houston, we have a message for you from the administrator, if you're ready.
We're ready.
Today, as you flawlessly executed the LDEF retrieval, literally millions paused from their daily routines and quietly watched America's space program at its very best. Thanks for providing us Earthbound folks with such an inspiring start for the 1990s. Signed, Vice Admiral Richard Truly, Administrator.
Hello, LDEF, well, hello, LDEF. It's so nice to have you back where you belong. You're looking swell, LDEF, we can tell. LDEF, you're still glowing, you're still growing, you're still going strong.
Good morning, Columbia.
Morning, Houston.
Your music this morning is courtesy of the LDEF Project, who are obviously very happy today.
All right, you guys. They're gone now.
Attack of the killer tomatoes! Attack of the killer tomatoes! The chewy, gushy, squishy, mushy, rotten to the core. They're standing outside your door.
And we're getting good downlink. We think.
Well, that, I guess, answers Dallas' question from earlier. We pulled up on LDEF yesterday, and we it was a little blurry. We had to put a special filter on, but we saw something that was kind of strange, so we got it on the cam recorder, and we thought we'd show it to you. So it's probably the first in a long line of experiments with the tomatoes that have been on LDEF. Okay, that's great. And we're just crossing the Andes and about to come into a bunch of clouds, but I don't know how well you can see it, but there's some real interesting geology down in the mountains in this part of the world. And
we're getting a great view, Dan. Thanks.
This machine is the American Flight Echocardiogram. It's an off-the-shelf ultrasonic imaging system that's it's a standard piece of equipment that's used to get a non-invasive picture of the heart and other soft tissue. In his hand, he's got the transducer that does the ultrasonic imaging, and we're putting a gel on it, which is sort of goopy water, and that gives us a better picture. The way the ultrasound works is that the ultrasound waves will basically bounce off different structure with different densities in it, and that's how we see a picture of the heart. What we're doing with this experiment is measuring the cardiovascular changes that microgravity causes on the body. This data was taken on us pre-flight, it'll be done post-flight, and then we're gathering the data in-flight, and so they can measure the different sizes of the chambers of the heart and tell what zero-G does to us. Jim, the bread mold looks like it's made 4 even bands, and on the past 2 days, almost all of them have gone damp. It looks like the growth is about 2/3 of the way down the tube on almost all of the white ones. We're going to take some photographs, and then if you have nothing else, we'll go on to the red package.
Marcia, we copy. Thank you.
Those are the fires they're looking for on the deforestation?
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Columbia, Houston, we have some real-time downlink of your water dump. Looks great.
Quite a show, isn't it?
You bet.
Pretty amazing, isn't it?
It's incredible. Hold me in place, will you?
Okay.
I'm going to move this hand. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, thanks. I got it.
Okay. See, Frank just said affirmative.
This is great. Look at this.
Yeah, we got that.
Okay, Houston, what you can see here is the lower body negative pressure device, or LBNP as we've been calling it here. What this is a candidate reconditioning protocol that we hope might be able to be used for overcoming or bettering orthostatic intolerance. Orthostatic intolerance in one gravity is the inability to stand up without feeling dizzy or lightheaded, or even in the worst case, passing out or fainting. Okay, so what we've got here is the lower body negative pressure device. The last time we flew one of these in the U.S. space program was on a Skylab missions. In fact, we flew it on all 3 of the Skylab missions. It looked a little bit different from this. In fact, it was a solid can that we flew. In this case, this entire device and all the equipment that you see right here can be folded up and put into one of our lockers here. What we're doing here is at the same time that Bonnie has a lower pressure on her lower body right now, Marcia is using the American flight echocardiograph and taking some pictures of her heart. Now, the measurements that we take while we're doing this, we are constantly measuring blood pressure, heart rate, and EKG. And in fact, EKG and heart rate are being constantly downlinked to the ground. Blood pressure is the only one, up here we're the only ones that have the blood pressure. We're monitoring that on this automatic blood pressure device, and it's also being taped down here on a recorder. Right now we've only got, when we come out of this mission, we are only going to have 2 data points, which really isn't enough to draw any conclusions from, but we'll be able to measure Bonnie's and my heart rate, blood pressure, and EKG when we return to Edwards in a few days, and see if we think there was any effect from this. But more importantly, when we fly this on some more shuttle flights, and also, if we have any iterations, any suggestions what we might be able to make to this, iterations between this and the ground-based studies, hopefully in the future we'll be able to come up with a fairly good, or maybe even a more effective countermeasure to orthostatic intolerance.
Dave, we copy all that. We appreciate the brief on LBNP. Y'all look great up there.
All right, Tammy, thanks.
Hi, Dan. This is Larry Bird. Congratulations to you and the crew on the slam dunk with LDEF. Happy birthday and have a safe landing.
Happy birthday to you.
Good morning, Columbia, and a happy birthday to Danny Boy.
Well, thank you very much. I was hoping that flying Mach 25 you didn't age, and this wasn't going to happen this year.
No, that's not the way it works. You already heard birthday greetings from the astronaut office and from Larry Bird during the wake-up music, but the LDEF team and all the rest of us here in MCC wanted to wish you a happy birthday too, Dan.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
So how old are you anyway?
Didn't you know this is a classified mission? It's a pleasure to bring you back aboard Columbia again. What we'd like to do today is give you a demonstration of some of the equipment we have on board the shuttle. I know you're all very aware of the many pictures that people see coming down from the shuttle in real time, and also the photographs that are brought back. The photo documentation on board these shuttle missions is done with a variety of photographic equipment. And the purpose of the documentation is for Earth observations, for technical documentation of various experiments and payloads, and some of it is just pure aesthetics to demonstrate and show people of America that support our space program how beautiful this universe is that we live on. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce Marcia Ivins, who's going to show you and demonstrate some of the things we do with the 70mm camera. And here's Marcia.
The 70mm camera that we use for mostly Earth observations is a Hasselblad. It's a standard Hasselblad that's pretty much not modified for our use. Has a motor drive on it, and it has a data magazine. The data mag holds about 95 or 100 frames of film, and it has a data on the back that basically tells us the MET of what we're shooting. For some film tests that we're flying, I have some regular rolls of 120 film, which is what a Hasselblad normally uses, and I have the little backs for that, so that I can compare this to other types of film. In order to do that, I use this device, which has got two cameras on one bracket, and they're connected to a button. When I hit one button, I fire both cameras at the same time. We fly three different lenses on this camera, a 50, a 100, and a 250, and in this case I have two 250s. I can line this up in the window and shoot the scenes, compare two films, and compare two speeds, compare two different f-stops. One of the things we're doing on this flight is to look at long lenses, and so I have yet even a bigger lens. This is a 500mm lens for the Hasselblad, and we'll be comparing this to a long lens for the 35mm camera also, and seeing how well we do looking at that. This camera is not an automatic camera. It requires that you determine what your own exposure is, and so our spot gives us an exposure, but we also use a spot meter looking out the window to average the scene and decide what exposure to use. That's about it for the 70. The 35 will be Weatherby.
This is a standard 35mm camera that most folks have at home. We use it here on board the shuttle for documenting crew actions and taking still photography of some of the mid-deck experiments that we're accomplishing, and also some action out in the payload bay, or, for example, LDEF in our case, and Earth observation photography. We use on this camera various different lenses, ranging all the way from fisheye lens for documenting action in the mid-deck when you need to have a wide field of view, and it's the standard photograph that you see that's slightly distorted out on the side. One of our favorites, 3570 zoom for taking Earth observations. You can frame the picture pretty nicely with that. And all the way up to my favorite, the 300 millimeter lens. We're using this lens to compare it with 70 millimeter photography that Marcia is taking. Some of the features on this camera, of course, the standard flash that we use. It has an automatic feature, so you don't have to worry about any times or setting the lights or taking meter readings down in the mid-deck. It's automatic, and you just view it and shoot. We have a data back on the back of the camera that automatically prints the MET on the photograph, useful for Earth observation, so we can locate the picture that we've taken. And of course, my favorite, the motor drive. You just point, shoot, and it rewinds, and you're ready for the next shot. Dave is next, and he'll be talking about the Airy camera.
What we've got here is a 16 millimeter Aeroflex motion picture camera. This is actually an identical camera to a camera that's used widely in the motion picture industry. On board, we use it to document almost all the activities that we do here. In fact, most of the films that we take when we go talking throughout the country about our space flights are taken with this camera here. We've got two different kinds of lenses here. What we've got on here right now is the 10 to 100 millimeter lens. The nice thing about this is that it's also got an auto feature to it that will take care of your f-stops for you. So all you have to do is point, focus, and then shoot. The camera is battery powered, and this is the battery pack right here. It's got 16 millimeter magazines right here. We carry about 12 of these on board with us, and these magazines can be daylight loaded. So the camera itself is just this portion here that you're seeing. And with that, I think Bonnie Dunbar is going to talk about the CCTV system that we have on board.
I'm going to talk a little bit about our video systems, or what we call our closed-circuit TV. We have both interior and exterior cameras. Most of the video that came down during the rendezvous and capture of LDEF was exterior video. The payload bay is a rectangle, and at each corner there is a camera. Normally we can carry both color and black and wide-angle and standard view lenses. I'm going to take a moment here and show you some of them. I'm going to downlink first what we call camera D, which is in the forward right side of the shuttle payload bay, and it's looking at the aft side of the shuttle, LDEF over at the right-hand side. And if you look closely, you can see camera C down there on the aft bulkhead. Going back over to camera A, which is on the forward left or port side of the vehicle, you can maybe make out camera B, or Bravo, down at the aft bulkhead, but you also see the remote manipulator system off to your right. We use this to capture the LDEF, and it also has two camera systems on it. It has a camera on the elbow, which is a color wide-angle lens, and then it has a camera right where the arm grapples onto the payload, which is called the end effector. And we use that camera on board to actually fly the end effector like an airplane. Our controllers on board have roll, pitch, and yaw and translation axes, and we look at a TV monitor inside. Coming back inside, you can see the two TV monitors that we use, and during the grapple of LDEF, I couldn't see very well out the windows exactly what I was grappling onto. In fact, I was using primarily these TV monitors to look at what I had to do. We control all of the shuttle closed circuitry TV from this panel right here, where we can select the television camera that we want to use and where we want it to go. We can also power it on and off. Recently, on several shuttle flights, we have been evaluating off-the-shelf camcorders, and we have one here, several different models. We found these very useful for in-cabin photography and for experimental documentation. In fact, they've been so successful that we have at least 2 experiments on this flight that utilize off-the-shelf camcorders and macro lenses for documenting experimental results. Well, this gives you kind of a quick view of the video systems that we have on board, and we'd definitely like to thank all the people who helped support us in doing this. And now I'll get you back to Dan.
Well, the last camera system we have on board is probably the granddaddy of all cameras, and it should be coming into the view right here. And that's a very large format camera. It's called IMAX. It's actually a payload. It flies on specific shuttle missions and has documented The Dream is Alive is one of the movies. It's shown in several theaters. I think there are about 100 theaters worldwide, very special theaters that only show this format. The format of each frame is 70 millimeters high by 120 long, and it gives a very high fidelity picture. As you can see, it's a very large camera, and it's not something you use at a spur of the moment. You pretty well have to plan your shots ahead of time. You can see I'm holding it by some handholds, which allow you to maneuver it like that. And we also, to get the best shots that are most stabilized, we have a rig where we can mount it in the window right over here, and it takes a shot looking right at the Earth. So using it this way, it's very stabilized, and we get some very good pictures. All in all, as you can see, we have a wide variety of cameras on board. A couple things I think worth noting that Marcia alluded to in the 70 millimeter that we were running some tests. We've normally used only 1 or 2 types of film, and on this flight we have a great number of films that we're doing the side-by-side comparison, hopefully to enhance the photography and get better pictures in the future. Well, once again, these photographs are used for a wide variety of things. For instance, on the LDEF retrieve, to document the various experiments before it even re-enters in the shuttle and gets maybe bounced around a little bit when we land. Marcia took over 700 photographs with the 70 millimeter to document each individual tray on the LDEF. So quite a bit of technical data are collected on the photographs and the tapes and the movies we take, in addition to the other around life on the shuttle as we're doing right now. And with that, hopefully this has lend a little insight into some of the equipment we have on board the shuttle. We'd like to turn the cameras back to the ground, who also can control the TV cameras, and they can look at some Earth views. Thanks a lot.
Dan, thank you for an informative presentation.
I'm filming this right now.
Although everyone calls this 0G, it really isn't quite 0G. And sometimes we do get down to micro G, but normally we're about 1/100th to 1/100,000th of a G. And it turns out that can be a very important variable, not only in certain systems, but certain processes. NASA got involved in that research during the Gemini and Apollo days in trying to determine how they would get their liquid propellant through the tanks and out to the engine. And out of that grew a new understanding of how fluids reacted in a weightless or near zero-G environment. I think everybody has demonstrated with the orange juice, and I'll be no exception, fluids respond differently in a zero-G environment. But I carry my towel around to wipe up after myself. And usually we're in the penalty box unless we drink it up as well. Well, you can see they react differently. Fluids don't break apart like they do from a hose. They are controlled by something called the Rayleigh limit. You can't draw a column of a fluid longer than its diameter. And all these are important things to understand because they could become obscured by gravity. It's also important in materials processing because on the Earth we can't change G. We can do some free fall experiments for 30 seconds in a zero-G aircraft, or we can use drop towers and get a few seconds of microgravity. But the only real place to understand how G affects everything from crystallization to separation processes is here in the laboratory at space. What we're trying to understand in this experiment is not so much how G affects some of the crystallization processes themselves, but sometimes how random disturbances affect them. Particularly when you're in an environment such as the shuttle or the space station. The large white and black object over it is the heater. On either side of that, you should see the undulating zone. What was particularly remarkable about this, all of these samples, indium, is that we had put scribe lines on the indium so we could tell how far the molten zone had traveled when we were heating up the sample. Well, as you can see, the molten zones, the scribe lines on the surface did not disappear. And this is very interesting. It may mean that we've got a skin of some kind, an indium compound, or something else. But this explains why it is often very difficult to determine where the zone is on indium. The other thing you will notice is that although this is located on the aft flight deck and connected to what would be on the ground, a vertical wall with the shuttle on a landing position, the undulations themselves respond directly to the undulations of the treadmill on the LIO door. We hope that this data will be of use to space station and to other manned laboratories, that we can learn how to isolate our exercise equipment. I think many people would like to think that we could one day automate all of this, but I think we're at a very embryonic research stage.
And we've got a good view of Wixby running on the treadmill now. Thanks a lot. Columbia, Houston, he's looking real strong, but he's smiling, so he needs to run faster.
This is just his warm-up. He wanted to know, or let the docs know that after this warm-up, he'd put on all of his instrumentation and do it again.
Polarized to dark blue. Not quite flat, you need to go down a little more on this side. What's as flat as I can make? That's flat. That is? But it's a small drop, okay? Slide. I2 and I3. Up. Doesn't look like anybody's growing in there. Slide. LR3 has bubbles and LR4 has bubbles.
We're now looking at graphics generated by systems at the Gold Room at Dryden. Columbia's energy and navigation are all in good shape, descending at a rate of 350 feet per second. They're at about 53,000 feet. They're approaching the intersection with a heading alignment circle, and we'll be making a left overhead turn to line up for the approach to concrete runway 22. Xenon lights illuminating the approach end of the runway at Edwards. Columbia will come into our field of view when we have this camera up to the right of the frame, and we'll roll out to the left.
Houston, you're looking good approaching the hack. We'd like a state vector transfer to the BFS. Surface winds are 260 at 5, altimeter 3011.
Roger.
This view again from an infrared camera at Edwards, and we see Columbia making the left overhead turn. They're now about 10.5 nautical miles out, altitude 15,000 feet. Touchdown 1 minute 56 seconds. Flight Dynamics Officer Ed Gonzalez reports they look real good, rolling on to final. Columbia is now processing the microwave landing system. Now 1 minute 40 to touchdown. Velocity or altitude 11,000 feet, range 7.2 nautical mile.
Columbia, we see on glide slope converging to center line.
Roger, Houston.
Range now 5 nautical miles, altitude 5,600 feet. Gear down. Gear down and locked. And Columbia rolls out after a successful flight. This view from an infrared camera again, and of course those images in lighter colors are brighter and hotter.
We'll stop, Houston.
Roger, Columbia, welcome home. Outstanding job. You've shown us the shuttle at its best, deploying and retrieving satellites. Great way to start the decade. Stand by for your post-landing deltas.
will go to closed and back to GPC.
This is Mission Control Houston, the crew of STS-32, now departing from the Space Shuttle Columbia. See Bonnie Dunbar. Commander Dan Brandenstein. Crew members now boarding the Astro van, and here in the Mission Control Center, the MCC has officially handed over to the convoy team, and the plaque hanging ceremony about to begin here in Mission Control as the crew members board the Astro van at Dryden.